Welcome in to another episode of the Casual GM Podcast. I am your host, Drew, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Mike. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Drew. How about yourself?
I'm excited. I'm getting excited. I'm kind of strange, right? Like I've got my eccentricities or what have you. So like I around this time before the draft, two things start to happen. I get so excited that I really don't even want to kind of like deal with it anymore. It's weird.
Just give me the draft.
Pretty much. And so like I get so nervous that like I want to like put it down and go do something else for a minute and then like show up at the draft or what have you. And the other thing that is guaranteed to happen, I will, at least during draft week, I will wake up one morning before the draft convinced a trade has happened that I've dreamed.
Yes, love it.
Yeah. And I'm like, last year I was convinced that the Colts and the Raiders had made a trade on draft night. And I got up and I got my phone out and I started trying to look for the trade to like deal with the ramifications of it. And I couldn't find it. And I must have spent like 10 minutes flipping through Twitter trying to figure out
where is
everyone
this?
Like I swear about this. Doesn't make any sense.
Did you happen to dream about Jeff Okudah last night?
I did not. Nice segue.
Yeah, we'll get to Jeff real in just a second, but we want to give a quick shout out to a new subscriber, Kurt2512. Welcome to the crew. Thanks for the sub, and hope you're enjoying the content.
Yeah, we are going for our 70th subscriber after Kurt, so yeah, Kurt's helping us get there.
On our way to triple digits. We'll get to triple digits, Drew.
Can't wait. Mark has joined the chat. Super Bowl or bust, he says.
Love it. That's his intro, I think, every time.
That's his. Mark loves that. He's he definitely has a way of announcing his presence, and it's a good way to think. I like the way that he thinks.
Yep. So. If you don't win the Super Bowl, you lost your last game ultimately.
Yeah, like the way that I usually think about like past seasons for football teams, it's like, you know, only one team wins, you know, the national title or the Super Bowl every year. And, you know, you always want to be that team. And it's really special when it is. But I have a buddy that's like, do you remember like game 7 of the 2018 season? And I'm like, no.
No, I don't.
I don't.
Refresh my memory. Was that...
Yeah. He's like, it's when Calvin had that great catch. And I was like, neat.
Oh, that great catch. Like there was only
that one. Yeah. And I was like,
I mean, he's not Quintez Cephas where there might be just single digits. Come on, it's Calvin.
Ooh, some shade throw to Quintez. All right.
I know.
I gotcha.
But I'm not a believer.
I would remember a Super Bowl win. I'm pretty sure. If you were raising the banners for it.
As you can see, I'm a big Red Wings fan as well, and I remember vividly all 4 of the Stanley Cup game clinching games in 97, 98, 02, and 2008.
Good times.
They were great time. I went to the Stanley Cup parade in downtown Detroit in 02 and 08 as well. Those were amazing. But speaking of Jeff Okudah, let's talk about some news and notes around the NFL because Jeff is no longer with us.
Yes, that has some rather some ramifications to that saying that I think we should quickly alleviate. He's not dead.
Yeah, true.
He simply got traded to Atlanta. So one could surmise it's just about the same thing, unfortunately. But yeah, we received Atlanta's 5th round pick in this year's draft. I believe that's pick 159. For Jeff, former overall number 3 pick. I reread the trade a couple of times when I saw it posted on Twitter.
And sure you weren't dreaming.
Yeah, and then once Rap Sheet tweeted it out, I was like, "Oh, it's real." Okay, so I was a little surprised at the compensation. I didn't think we would get much for him. I'm a little surprised at what we got.
Yeah,
and he was like the fourth highest paid player on the team or something like that as far as his cap number was concerned. So like he's not breaking the bank by any stretch of the imagination, but I never thought he was like, he hasn't played up to like 10 million a year from his time in Detroit. So, but maybe a change of scenery would be good for him, and playing across from like AJ Terrell, who's one of the better corners in the NFL, would probably be good for him. And to me, what the first thing I thought when I saw the trade was, I guess Mosley's knee's fine.
Yeah, because they're going to count on him.
Right, because now it's like, so the secondary to me seems like, well, okay, so it's going to be Kirby Joseph and Tracy Walker, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson playing in the slot, and then Sutton on one side, and you would think Mosley on the other, right? I mean, that makes sense.
So.
And then you have Jacobs and Will Harris as backups. Will Harris.
Hey, depth is depth, right? You got to have somebody to put out there when literally everybody else goes down.
Yes. I mean, that did happen last year. I mean,
it did.
So, yeah, I don't think, we've said in the past on past shows that, I don't think that the people that the Lions have signed in free agency this year really precludes them from taking any particular player.
Yeah.
Whether that's Bijan Robinson to a quarterback, who knows, or anybody in
from
between.
The least to the most valuable. I see.
Pretty much.
What you did there.
I don't know when he got hurt, Mark, I suppose. Mark says, I wouldn't think Mosley would be ready for week 1. Is that even realistic? Doubled up on the realistic right there. You don't see that very often. But I don't know when he got hurt or to the extent or what his timetable. I haven't seen anything about his recovery window. So it's entirely possible that they open the season with Jacobs or whatever. But you're still what? Season starts September or something. So
what's up, Steve-O?
He tore his ACL in week 5. So let's see, what would that be? October something would be a year. I don't know. He might be ready for week 1. He may not play in the preseason. Maybe he starts the season on the PUP list. What is this? This seals it. Trading Okudah means they're drafting. Are we really going to start the stream off tonight with this?
So
move Iffy back to short corner. Sure.
Question for you though. One of the things that I was thinking about was the timing of this. Sure. A lot of trades at this point don't happen at this point in this close to the draft, right? A lot of them just wait until draft day because you don't want to tip your hand. You don't want to let people know what you might or might not be going for. Hey, we got this. If we waited until draft day, we know we've got one less cornerback that we are planning on having, but nobody else does, and it's a secret. So I thought the timing of this was actually kind of brilliant, especially with us at the 6th pick and knowing that almost certainly the best cornerback will probably be on the board. So, I mean, Seattle could take a corner instead of either Anderson or Carter or one of the other edge rushers or something, but the way that I was thinking about this was it's kind of brilliant because now you're like, is Brad Holmes sending a signal that we have an opening in our cornerback, in our defensive backs room. So we're more likely to take a cornerback, and maybe if we are going to take a quarterback or an edge rusher, or that's probably about the only other two that we would take up there. But like, if we are going to take a quarterback, for example, is this a smoke screen for we really got to focus on this because we've got this new need or this new opening? What are your thoughts on kind of the timing and like the smoke screen of like what tends to happen with the draft?
Okay, so before I do that, I'm going to say, according to Chris Sims, Tyree Wilson is the next Myles Garrett. Yeah, Chris Sims is insane. He works for CBS. Anyone that works for CBS, I basically am like, okay, this is just for fun as a thought experiment.
Yeah.
But Chris Sims is insane. But I think just the opposite. So like between the combine and the draft is commonly referred to as lying season.
Yep.
this is not lying. This happened. Like they turned paperwork into the league office and exchanged like picks for players. Like this is not. Do I think that it's a smoke signal? No. If it's a smoke signal, it's the kind that's like I'm rubbing two sticks together and the fire won't start. Like, not that your idea is bad. I just don't think that this move is impactful enough to accomplish what you were floating. Because the 5th pick is nothing, and like even though they acquired Jeff Okudah, like I doubt that he is going to start over Casey Hayward. I think that Jeff Okudah is Casey Hayward insurance.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I was thinking that like if for whatever reason Holmes is looking at a quarterback
sure.
at number 6,
Yes.
does this distract away from the potential of that, so people don't try to trade in front of us to grab whoever they're thinking is going to be around?
No. No. So I don't think so. Like there would have to be, so in order for that to be accomplished, I think that what you would have to have is like a glaring hole at both cornerback positions.
Yeah.
And like legit rumors floating around that you're looking to like take a guy or make a trade or something. And it can't be just like we floated this shit to CBS. It has to be like, no, we've engaged the Colts or we've engaged the Cardinals in trade talks with honest to God intentions of moving up. That's the only thing I think that would filter down to the rest of like the general managers and league offices where they're like, well, I'm hearing Detroit's for real on the phone with the Cardinals. Like if we want to get there, we have to do this because this is actually real right now. If you were another team and you're like, and if like, so like, let's say you're the Raiders or somebody, and it's like, did you guys hear that Jeff Okudah just like the Lions just traded Jeff Okudah for a 5th round pick? Jesus Christ. Do you think that we need to move up to 3rd? You know, like I wouldn't react like that if I was any other team in the NFL, like because even though it's fun to think about all the different moves that anybody could potentially do leading up to where your team is selecting in the draft, that's still a finite number of options. Like, and the overwhelmingly likely option for all of those teams is that they stay at those picks and draft some players. You know, we're gonna get trades, right? But like Jeff Okudah is just not important enough to warrant any team thinking Detroit's going to change its draft strategy, especially when like everything they did in free agency points wanting maximum amount of flexibility in the draft. If anything, this gives them another 5th round pick they can play around with. They now have 9 picks. Yeah. So
and knowing that going in is important too.
Yeah, I would rather know where my picks were heading into a draft than during a draft. Right? Like I would rather acquire my 9th pick with 3 weeks leading up to it so I could plan, as opposed to acquiring that same pick while they're on the red carpet walking in, you know?
Yeah.
So I think this is a relatively inconsequential move. It does free up like $5 million plus in cap space. So I think that puts the Lions behind the Bears as the second most cap friendly team heading into the season so far.
Great.
Right there with Carolina.
It's nice having the flexibility.
So this is also something new that I think that this administration of the Lions hasn't really had yet, and that's cap flexibility if something becomes available during the season before the trade deadline. You know, like if you wanted to make a move, say the Lions are something like 6-2, you know, and they're like 2 games up in the division or whatever. And you know, it's something like, I don't know what would happen. Like, let's say someone, let's just pick a name, like Brandon Ayuk becomes available, just to pick a name, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, we could pick up Ayuk, you know, or like, what if, you know, who knows who it would be?
Lamar Jackson, for example.
Well, that's not going to happen.
I don't see that happening either.
They got some Teddy Bridgewater. So I do not like that move. If the
Bridgewater.
Yeah. So the reason
I'd rather just draft a guy, even if it's a later round guy. Like obviously, I've made my preference known that I would like to see us take a quarterback at 6. But even if we don't, I would rather see us take a mid-round flyer than Bridgewater.
Right.
It's cheaper.
Yes.
And we already know what Bridgewater's ceiling is. It's backup. That's why he's a backup.
Well, I mean, like I do think that Bridgewater would have a higher ceiling than like a mid-round draft pick, but like the problem would be like you would sign Teddy Bridgewater if it was like we're very serious about making sure that we're going to eliminate most of the worst case scenarios from we're heading into this season, right?
Right.
So like Steve-O makes a point here, like signing Sue after week 8, so like last year the Eagles picked up Ndamukong Suh late just for depth in a playoff run. They got the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Sign Bridgewater and draft a guy. Okay. Getting insane over here.
So there's really only 2 things that happened in the last week. One was Okudah, and that happened today. And then the other one was Odell Beckham Jr. signing with Baltimore. I believe it was 13 million base up to 18 million with incentives or something like that.
You're close. It's 15 up to 18.
15 to 18.
So his signing bonus was like 13 million.
Oh, gotcha.
His like base salary is like 1.5, and then there's like a workout bonus, and then it's like they gave him like 13. They just wrote him a check for like $13 million. But like the whole day, it was like, oh, he's meeting with the Jets, and like he and the Jets are talking about stuff. His agent's talking with the Jets, and he signed in Baltimore. And I was like, oh, okay. Like,
well, don't forget the rumor was Rodgers told the Jets, all right, if you want to trade for me, like these are the guys that I'd like to throw the ball to. And Odell was one of the guys on his list. So that's one of the reasons why I think the rumors were so strong with the Jets.
I'm going to get a little crass here right now. Like the Jets are making themselves look like bitches for what they're trying to do to acquire Aaron Rodgers for like a year or two. Like they sign Alan Lazard, like they hire Nathaniel Hackett. Like it's like, do you want to hire his personal chef and his like financial investor too into some ridiculous thing for what? You think that I mean, like if the idea is that Aaron Rodgers with Alan Lazard, I guess you throw like who's that Wilson or whatever like on top of it, Corey Davis maybe, like, and that's going to take you to a Super Bowl. I mean, like you do all this, you don't do all this stuff to like win a division.
Yeah,
and just make the playoffs and get bounced in round 1, even though Aaron Rodgers has a bunch of experience with that. Like, you make a move,
the championship games and then gets bounced.
I mean, like
lost like 4 of them.
There's no one else even bidding on Aaron Rodgers that we're aware of, and it's like, hey, let's make sure that like you give us all this draft compensation, and then I just hate seeing this guy's whims just get catered to. It just makes me sick, and like I don't like the Packers,
least
but
favorite player in the NFL.
I despise the Jets. I just despise the Jets. I just have hated the way they've run their organization for a long time.
The best thing about the Jets is pizza. Love Jets pizza.
It's very good.
Totally not affiliated, which is why the pizza is so good.
I when they make a move like this too, like I just don't see it being successful. Like, so let's say they go through with the trade. Let's say it happens before the draft or whatever. I don't think they're going to get the 13th pick in the draft. Like I could see something like trade compensation, like what Carson Wentz got, not because Aaron Rodgers and Carson Wentz are similar players, but there's no bidding war here. Like, so like I could see something like we're going to give you a 2 this year and a 2 next year. And the next year's second could become a first if certain conditions are met. Like you win a playoff game or he plays 80% of the snaps or something like that.
Yeah.
But that, I mean, the 49ers are the other team that like could be in on this. Like what's going on with Trey Lance? Are you really going to let Brock Purdy like run your offense? And like and Aaron Rodgers went to Cal and grew up in the Bay Area and wanted to play for the 49ers.
You think he'd sign there after they like completely ignored
he
him at the
sucks.
draft and everything else.
Well,
think
a
he'd
lot of
sign
teams
there?
ignored him at the draft, including the Jets.
Yeah,
So,
well, it's
like,
true, but like he was mostly upset about the Niners
sure.
because that was like his hometown
I
team,
just
and from what I understand, they said that he was the guy that they wanted, and then they didn't. They drafted, I don't know, like a running back instead of him or some shit.
the Niners, they drafted Alex Smith.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. They drafted a different quarterback instead of him after telling him that he was going to be their guy.
Yeah, they took him
He was
like
kind of
number
pissed,
one.
but
He
it
was
sucks to be
pissed. It
him.
was great.
I know, right? And I didn't
So,
even hate him back then.
So right now, someone in the chat said the 49ers have the money to take him on. Currently, they are $3 million under the cap. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They are 24th in available cap space in the NFL. So that would be.
No, he said they don't have the money.
They don't have the money.
Yeah.
Then I agree with
don't
that.
have the money. Yeah.
Okay, I read it wrong. My bad.
Yep.
So, yeah,
well,
they don't.
There you go. There goes the aura of perfection.
Yeah, right up.
So
we're in our 48th episode, and I finally made a mistake.
It was going to happen at some point.
5'10".
Who had 48, guys? Who had 48?
Kalijah Cansey is 5'10" till I die. I swear. So,
well, let's get to the meat and potatoes, since there's really not much else around the NFL that's going on. Let's talk draft prospects. There's the draft is coming up, right? It's a thing, and you know what happens there? People get picked.
Yes, they do.
People get picked and drafted. So let's talk about those guys.
So we're gonna do our top 5
order you want to do.
Well, we're gonna talk about our top 5 players at certain positions.
All right.
We're gonna stick to offense this week because we're gonna try and keep it to an hour tonight because Mike has plans. So
nerd plans.
Let's start with quarterback.
All right.
That's quarterbacks kind of run the show in the draft. If I was a general manager and I had to draft a quarterback for me to continue to be employed, I think that my top 5 would look something like Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, and the 5th is a toss-up. I mean, like, I've recently done I looked a little bit deeper into like Hendon Hooker. I just don't like what I see. So, like, I don't know. Like, I'll give you a top 4 for quarterbacks, and I'll talk about Hendon Hooker a little bit as to why I'm not a huge fan. So in a different chat, I think it was a PFF chat earlier, like yesterday, Funky, who is a bummer that he's not here, and I had a conversation about Hendon Hooker, and I basically said, like, I don't think that the Lions should take him. And he was like, well, why? And so I listed 3 reasons. He's got the knee injury. He's 25 years old. He'll be 26 when the season starts. And the offense that he plays in doesn't translate to the NFL at all and can't translate. That's a thing. And so he offered a viewpoint to counteract those 3 points. And I wanted to address those tonight. I was hoping he'd be here. So I'm just going to go through them real quickly. The ACL. He's right. Like, it's not as serious an injury as it used to be. It's, a little less than a year to recover. Like, he got hurt in November. So, like, I think that J-Mo was back after 10 months of his injury. So if that's accurate and the timeline is correct, that would put him coming back something like right around the start of the season, right? September-ish. Maybe late September. Maybe he starts the season on PUP or whatever. But so I'm not too worried about the knee, right? Here's what does worry me. He's 25 years old. Like, he should have come out when he, like, in the draft when he was like 21 or 22 years old. Like, I mean, like, he should have been in Jeff Okudah's draft class. He and Lamar Jackson are effectively the same age. Like, that's his peer group. And, like, I know that it doesn't maybe mean as much to other people, but I think that, like, if you look at a player's career in chunks of time, like for rookie contract, second contract, possibly third contract. Like, I want my rookie contract guys to be almost as young as they possibly can be. Like, you learn at a faster rate, you heal at a faster rate, like your body's in better overall condition, for longer. I want all those things. And like, if I'm going to draft an athlete to play a game that I make millions, if not billions of dollars on. So I have a concern with Hendon Hooker that he's missed a big chunk of that rookie contract time. If you sign him to a second deal, he's 30. I think you have to take that into account. And I don't want to spend a high pick on him. But the thing that really worries me about Hendon Hooker is that the offense that he played in at Tennessee doesn't translate to the NFL. And so I didn't understand why that was. And so this morning I had a 30-minute conversation with a guy that works in college football that I know. And I said, can you tell me why the offense in Tennessee doesn't translate? Sure. So in college, the hash marks are wider than they are in the NFL by a pretty decent margin. So what Tennessee does is when the offense places the ball on a hash, they throw to that side of the field because the hash mark is closer to the out of bounds line. So that line is smaller. So a
quicker short passes,
a little out route. Yeah, exactly. So like a little out route, that is as short as that route can possibly be. So, and here's the thing that I think is most telling about Hendon Hooker's time at Tennessee. When they line the ball up on either hash, how many times in the year do you think he threw back to the opposite side of the field? He played in 11 games.
22 times. We'll say 2 games. Yeah.
15 times. So a little more than once a game, he threw the ball to the wide side of the field. So like, you have
how much
to
of
do
that is scheme though, right? Is that his
100%
fault? Yeah, but so is that his fault then, or is it the scheme? If it's not his fault, then you're like, okay, well, it is what it is. But
so let me ask you this, Mike. So you're looking at a guy like Bryce Young or CJ Stroud who run more typical pro style progression based offenses, and then you have Hendon Hooker, and he's running a one read scheme specific offense. Who do you think, if you're the general manager, is going to translate better to the NFL more quickly?
Oh, for sure. If you're looking for speed, it's going to be a guy like CJ Stroud or Bryce Young.
Right.
If you need someone to start this year.
Right. So like, you have an injury that he's still recovering from. You have the fact that he is effectively 3 to 4 years behind people like his age when it comes to being in the NFL at all. And he now has to start transitioning from the only offense that he's been successful in like 6 years in college football.
Yeah.
Like, to me, when you add all those things up, I'm just like, I'll pass. Now, like I think someone in the chat said something like, we'll use like a second round pick on him or something. Okay. But like Mike Tannenbaum from NFL Network or wherever it was, CBS, had him as the 5th pick in the draft in his mock.
Yeah, like, on NFL insane. Draft Buzz has him listed as the 3rd. God, I fucking ads. The 3rd quarterback on the list. You'd see his name if his effing ads weren't there.
Right. So like, I would bet my current job on Anthony Richardson being a better quarterback than Hendon Hooker in the NFL 10 out of 10 times. So I think that it's just ridiculous. So like, I have Young, Stroud, Richardson, Levis, X, because I really don't know who the 5th guy is. I don't feel comfortable with Hendon Hooker for numerous reasons. Jared Goff is great. He's so good. just move away from the list. So where do you want, what position group you want to go to next, Mike?
So I do want to talk about quarterbacks, though. So we got Bryce Young. I'm just gonna stop sharing my screen because the stupid ads are nonstop.
No good.
I'll just shrink it a little bit. Now it's off to the side. So they've got Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. They have Hendon Hooker at number 3.
Sure.
Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, and then guys like Tanner McKee, Stetson Bennett. I've seen us mocked in different places taking Max Duggan. Anthony Richardson is an intriguing prospect, and I think he's somebody that should be definitely considered at 6. We're in a unique opportunity where we have successfully, over the last 2 draft classes and this free agency, raised the bar across our team where we don't have this glaring need where we have to have somebody at 6 to fill this need, and it has to hit, and they need to be a starter tomorrow or it's all for naught. And I think because of that, it gives us an opportunity to take a look at a quarterback like a Levis or a Richardson that maybe they need a year behind somebody, or even, I mean, not that I'd take Hooker at 6, but like Hooker, cool. You need to sit a year behind somebody. Well, we happen to have somebody. So I think it's definitely worth the Lions taking a look at a guy like Levis or a guy like Richardson, just even if it's sitting behind Goff for a year. We need a backup anyway. Sudfeld is not the answer.
You're going to break Joey's heart. He wanted Terry Bridgewater.
Well, I'd still rather have one of these guys. I think they just have a higher ceiling.
Teddy, who the fuck is Terry Bridgewater? It's Teddy Bridgewater, Drew, you idiot.
So anyway, I thought it was worth kind of talking about a couple of these other guys. I've seen us being mocked, McKee in the 2nd round before, and then really late I've seen O'Connell and Dugan. So
yeah, I don't give a shit if they're outside of the 1st round, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, like the likelihood of a non-1st round quarterback hitting and being like a quality player in the NFL is relatively low. And like, I would much rather bank on those guys. Like even like a running back outside of round 1 has so much better hit rate than a quarterback, that I want those picks to be invested wisely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it makes sense to take a shot on a guy. I just don't like this quarterback class outside of the top 4 or 5 guys.
Yeah.
But you can say that about most classes.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go?
What else do we want to talk about? Edge rusher. I mean, that's probably what we were going to take, our edge and cornerback. So it makes sense to talk about those guys next. So we got Will Anderson, and then who?
Well, I think that's I think it's going to depend on how you classify what an edge rusher is. I know that sounds stupid, but like to me, there's a lot of players in this class that are labeled as like not the position that they're going to play in the NFL. So let me take a look here. I'm going to bring up PFF's big board here and give you an idea. But I do have Will Anderson first among edge rushers. I really like him. He may not be like a sack producer, but I think that as like someone who's going to create pressure, I really, really like that when paired with Aiden Hutchinson. Like Aiden Hutchinson, Houston, even though like Okwara, those are guys that are going to like, they're not going to stop. Like the motor runs, and like you're going to, I think, like, you know, if you flush a guy out of the pocket and you get like 1 or 2 extra seconds, you're gonna end up getting him. To be honest, I know this is gonna sound weird, but like I thought Miles Murphy from Clemson was a pretty good prospect. He profiled so much like Trayvon Walker did last year, and he went number 1. And I don't think that they're the same player by any stretch of the imagination, but like I think putting a guy like that on your D line is probably a solid. It's a plus move.
Yeah.
And I like Lucas Van Ness from Iowa, even though for whatever reason I've never seen a backup that didn't start in college get rated this high. But the only thing I don't like about Tyree Wilson is that two things. Number one, he doesn't seem to have any pass rush moves. He just has raw athleticism. Okay, that's a great starting point. He also has a broken bone in his foot that he's healed from. And just from like watching people play basketball, and like when you deal with like little bones in your foot getting broken, they have a way of like getting broken again really easily. And so I would be concerned about his future availability, because I think that that's a repetitive injury. Nolan Smith is an absolute unbelievable athlete. But like the thing that's so good about Nolan Smith is that he's good against the run. Like you wouldn't think that a 238-pound like ultra athlete would be like a exceptional run defender, but he is, and so it's like he's kind of lumped in with like the edge rushers because of his athleticism and his ability to like shed blocks and use his hands. But like, I mean, if someone out in the chat or if somebody like online were arguing like, hey, Detroit needs to do something about its run defense, Nolan Smith would be an excellent addition in that regard, and if he does anything else for you, fine. I think he suffers from the uber athlete. Like, what position do you play? Are you a linebacker? Do you play on the line? Are you a slot corner? Like, what are you? We don't know exactly where. We know we need you on the field, but we don't know how you're going to be, what you're going to do.
The Isaiah Simmons like type of thing, where you're like, you're a weapon. You're a defensive weapon. How we deploy you will depend on the rest of the team around us and where our needs are.
Yeah. BJ Ojulari is somebody that I think could be like an extremely good pass rusher. And no one's talking about BJ Ojulari. Like, he's not generating buzz, and like, I've seen him mocked in the first round, but I also wouldn't be surprised at all if it was like he's there at 48, or like if he's there at 35 and you wanted to move up and take a guy like that. Like, I'm all about that move. So it depends on what
you're giving up. Isn't it huge? And we've got 9 picks.
Right.
For 7 rounds, we have 9 picks.
So like Detroit's 2 years ago, Detroit's roster was in such a bad position that you could just go into the draft and just take the best player at almost any position.
Yeah. Whoever the top of your big board is, whoever's left after you've crossed people off and moved everybody up. And
that was probably going to be your week 1 starter.
Yeah.
But that's not the case anymore 2 years later, because Brad hit on enough guys. It was like he's got 3 drafts in 2. So like
Brad Gnomes.
There's the flag. If Crimson was in chat, we could shout him out for it, but he's over at Luke's podcast. So I think that Detroit needs to start being more selective with where they're going to invest their picks. And if that means like trading up here and there, especially like in the mid rounds, to like hit on a guy that you wanted a certain spot, like I think that'd be completely reasonable.
Yeah.
So, but I here's the other thing I think about for this particular set of like edge rushers. We're going to talk about like 12 to 15 of these guys 8 years from now still being like legit players in the NFL. I just don't think that any of them are going to be top 5 at their position.
That's fair.
I mean, like I've talked about, like let's hit a double, like let's hit some doubles in this draft as opposed to like some home runs. There's I think you could hit a lot of doubles with a lot of these players. So
the defensive line, this is going to be a controversial one of sorts because of the off the field actions with Carter, but Jalen Carter is at the top of that list, right? As a pure prospect outside of the legal situation that he's in or was in and is now sort of no longer in, but
he's not in it anymore. They pled out. It's done. He's got community service.
Yeah. So he's top of the list. What are your thoughts on some of these other guys? Would you kind of rank these? I see Luke Van Ness is here as well. But But like, would you kind of, and Ojulari's here because, like you said, some of these guys are like, what is this person?
Right.
Is this kind of how you would rank them as well? Miles Murphy next, followed
No.
Brisset, Cansey, and then guys like Van Ness and McDonald.
So I guess it depends on what kind of front you're going to run for Miles Murphy, but like I usually think of guys in like a 4-down alignment, so a 4-man line.
Mm-hmm.
I would have it Carter as a clear number 1, top tier 1 prospect, Bresee 2. I just think that Kalijah Kancey is going to do so much better on the outside than he would as a 3
inside.
Yeah, like
he's 280. That's a big outside guy, though.
I mean, yeah,
281 pounds. It's a big dude.
Sure.
Does he have that kind of speed, though?
Yes, that's his whole thing. He is a one-trick pony, and it's speed and hand use, and those are good things.
Yeah,
those are great things. But like,
especially on the outside.
Yes, especially on the outside, and not one lined up over a guard. Like the problem that Kancey has, and like the knock against him. Hey, Funky, I already did my Hendon Hooker thing, man. I took your points from our conversation in the chat yesterday, and I dug a little deeper on them, and I was like, I'm so bummed that Funky isn't here to chat about these. So I'm sorry, man. I jumped the gun on you, but
I trust that he'll watch the video on demand.
Oh, I'm sure he will
later,
3 or 4 times, right? To me, Kancey is simply does not weigh enough to play as a 3 technique, and that is the kind of D lineman the Lions are looking to acquire next to Ali McNeil. So, like, I would.
114 pounds is a big boy.
He's a big guy. I like Bresee in that role. I don't think that I would take Bresee at 6, but like the Kalijah Kancey level, like he looks great, but they're all one-on-ones, and like the knock on him is if you get, of that third hand from some other offensive lineman on him, that he's toast. He can't get off of because he's not strong enough. And like that's not a knock on him. It's not like he's weak or anything like that, but like people love comparing him to Aaron Donald, position, college, whatever. And like the thing about Aaron Donald that is just different from Kalijah Kancey is even though Aaron Donald was a quote unquote undersized defensive tackle, the guy is like the Incredible Hulk as far as his strength is concerned. He's like throwing people around like guards. He's throwing guards around, and that's a stark difference from what Kalijah Kancey does.
Yeah.
Is Kancey a bad player? No. Is he Aaron Donald? No.
Yeah.
If he was Aaron Donald, I'd be like, yeah, draft him at 6.
Right?
Trade up to 3.
If he was Aaron Donald, he'd go at 3.
Trade up to 3 and draft him at 3. Yeah. Like, but he's not. Like, he's just not that. He's not Aaron Donald. Like, you shouldn't. And I don't think that Brad Holmes would.
It's not fair to him either, right? It's like, oh, you have these similarities to one of the greatest players to ever play the game, and now you've got to live up to that. That's not fair.
It's not.
That's just not going to happen. Like,
I mean, I did mention his age, Funky. I mean, it's a factor. I mean, I think GMs would talk about it. But like Lucas Van Ness, like there's a lot of like tweeners.
Yeah.
In this class. And like the thing about this class that I think is almost universally true, like across the board, almost regardless of whatever position you're talking about, is they're small. It's a little like a physically small class.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about a 280-pound defensive tackle. Like most of the wide receivers are like 170 pounds.
Yeah, you don't really get down until you get to like Maisie Smith, where you get another guy over 300.
Yeah, and like someone like Maisie Smith is like a 2-gap defensive tackle. Like he's going to help against your run game. And like, I think that like if he was there at 48, like Maisie Smith would probably be like a guy to consider, or whatever, to put next to McNeil. But like, I would prefer to draft Bresee. So
yeah,
there's a lot of good D linemen in this class. Like I would rather invest picks on the D line than in like linebacker or safety or something like that. But it's going to be real interesting to see how the draft falls. Because like if Jalen Carter's there at 6, like you get the guy on a schedule, and you like put him in the culture. Like so I've heard a lot of people say like you don't want to add like a guy like that to Detroit's culture. Why the hell not? I mean, like, is your culture worth shit if you can't add a guy like that and have the culture affect a player like him?
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's like a balloon. Like, oh, it's really pretty and it looks great. Just don't touch it because it's gonna get popped.
That's not a strong culture at
right.
all.
So, and I do think, like, having watched Hard Knocks and seen the improvement from the Lions and how they're constantly harping on that same message, like, it's about team and it's about the right guys and all that kind of stuff. Like,
it's about grit.
Right. If you decide to add a player like Jalen Carter, you have to have some idea at least that he can fit into that group and that the group is going to benefit him as far as attitude, work ethic, values, that kind of, intangibles. So, but like, I mean, I would rather take a chance on Breesy coming off, like, 2 years ago he had an ACL. I'd rather take a chance on him, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, he just fits the mold better.
Well, I know we kind of talked about focusing on the offense today because we started with quarterback, and then
we just did defense, right?
Totally did the opposite, and we went to defense. Let's go back to the offense, though.
Sure.
Because I figured, like, the things that we want to talk about are the positions that we might be taking in the first round, right? So we're probably not taking offensive tackle. We're probably not taking a guard, at least not at 6. Maybe at 18. Maybe if we drop back into the 20s, we take a guard like Osiris Torrance or something like that. But when we're looking at the player that we would probably take at 6, we covered a couple of those, potentially a quarterback, potentially one of those D lineman positions. I don't think we can overlook wide receiver either.
Sure. Let me clear it up.
Maybe not at 6, but definitely at 18 it's in play.
Definitely at 18. I would not do it at 6. Like, I don't think there's a guy in this class that's worth the 6th overall pick in the draft. So here's how I would rank these guys. Jackson Smith-Njigba, number 1. Addison, number 2. Johnson, number 3. Zay Flowers, number 4. Downs, 5. And then, like, I don't really care about talking about another wide receiver until, like, we get to, like, Cedric Tillman or Andre Yosevich or somebody like that. So, like, here's my issue. No position group in the NFL draft this year exemplifies, like, hey, we're just small more than the wide receiver group. Like, Devonta Smith got a lot of shit when he came into the NFL like 2 years ago because, like, he was like 6 foot, 178 pounds or 68 pounds or whatever. And it was just like, you're too slight, bro. You're not going to play in the NFL. They're going to eat your lunch. He's been fine.
Yeah.
Like, Jamar
Chase isn't a giant either.
He's not a giant, but, like, he's put together or whatever.
Yeah.
And, like, almost none of these guys fit that bill. These guys are like 6 foot or less and like 170 or less. Like, Tank Dell is a fucking midget. And, like, some people are like, he runs great routes. And I was like, listen, dude, he wasn't even on your radar until the Senior Bowl. I mean, like, neat, but, like, he had better be quick forever if that's my problem with most of these guys.
Yeah.
Because most of these guys are quick or more quick than they are fast. And if you're going to be more quick than fast, you need to be like Julian Edelman quick for a long time. Because you just don't, if you're not physically imposing, your only advantage that you really have is speed. So, and my only problem with Quentin Johnston, and the only reason I don't have him 1, is because he is a small dude in a big dude's body. He plays small. Like, he doesn't go up and out muscle guys for, like, contested catches. Like, you don't want to. Right. I mean, like, you would think that, like, at 6'3", 208 pounds or whatever, that he would go out and win jump balls. He doesn't. Like, his contested catch rate is abysmal. Like, what he likes to do is, like, run slot routes. And then, like, if you can get the ball in his hands in space, he's excellent at making people miss. Like, if you want a guy that's going to break tackles, Quentin Johnston's your dude.
Yeah.
But, like, you have to have him run, like, little dude routes in order for him to be able to do that. So, like,
One Pride says majority of these guys are slot guys.
And we already have a good slot guy.
We have a great slot guy.
So, like, if you're looking for an X receiver, I'm thinking guys like Johnston would fit that bill. Cedric Tillman would fit that bill. Andre Yosevich would fit that bill. Like, those are the kinds of guys. Like, Rashee Rice from SMU would fit that bill. Like, but, like, you don't need to invest early.
Yeah.
You know, and if you wanted, if like Zay Flowers, for example, 5'9", what does he weigh? 182 pounds. It's not big. If he's
182.
If he can play, so like if he can play as much on the edge as he does in the slot, then you can do some things with Sun God and that player, whoever that player is. But you know what I would like to see is you have JMO, who's a speed demon. You have St. Brown, who is a route running aficionado, chain mover. I'd like to see a third skill set that's largely like, I am the box out, power forward, jump ball expert. And then you have a matchup that you can go to almost regardless of the situation. So like, I don't want to like just have 3 slots out there on the field or what have you. So the kid out of Purdue, Charlie fucking Jones, Funky, absolutely, dude. That guy tore Michigan apart in the Big Ten championship game. I hadn't seen him play until then. Sign me up for Charlie Jones. Like, if you want him to be like the Quentin Cephas, Khalif Raymond, like level of the depth chart, 100%. If he's your 4th wide receiver, that is lightning. So like, I love Charlie Jones. I think Charlie Jones is going to be a really good wide receiver. Anyways, he happened to hit on one of my prospect crushes. So
yes. So so let's talk about other prospect crushes, and we'll stay on the offensive side of the ball. Let's talk tight end.
Sure.
These are probably the 3 guys that we would potentially get in the 1st or 2nd round. Obviously not at 6. Right. Probably not at 18, but one of our 2nd rounders or even a 3rd rounder, I could see one of these guys if they fall to the 3rd, which I'm not sure they will, but these are your boys, especially Darnell. Number 0, actually.
So I have I'd be okay with it, One Pride. I wouldn't be over the moon with it. Like, to me, that's like the consolation prize if the thing doesn't fall your way.
Yeah.
But like, let's talk about these guys. First of all, I think the guy that's most likely to get drafted in the 1st round is Kincaid. I disagree with it. I do think that's what's probably going to happen.
Why do you think that?
Because he has got the narrative about him right now is that he is the best pass catcher out of all these guys. So like, I think what people want is, even though like Kelsey and Kittle and like Darren, yes, over Mayer. That's what I think. I like the lineup that we have here on the screen as my 1, 2, 3, but like all the buzz that I hear about as far as tight ends are concerned is Kincaid. So
interesting.
I don't like it. So like, I think what the Lions indicated when they traded TJ Hawkinson is, A, they don't want to pay top dollar for a player at the tight end position. B, if you look at all of the players that they have at tight end, they're very similar in what they do on the field. They're like, they can catch, they can block. I wouldn't call them ultra athletic, but they're more athletic than not.
Yep.
You know, and if I had to pick a dude that meets that kind of profile, it's Darnell Washington. Also, I love Darnell Washington. The guy I absolutely get like Twitter pated every time I see the dude on camera.
6'7", 264.
He's so big. He's so big. Like, but like Michael Mayer is probably going to have the best career out of any of these guys. Like, he's like, the comps that he's getting are like Heath Schuler or Heath Miller. Is he that the guy from Pittsburgh all those years? And like Jason Witten. You know, like Jason Witten was a baller for a long time. So like,
they've got his comp at Mark Andrews, which
would be great. I love Mark.
Pretty damn good.
Mark Andrews is great. So would I be upset if the Lions took a tight end? Nope. I would be fine with them drafting a tight end at any point outside of the 1st round. Also, depending on who is on the board. But like, Luke Musgrave didn't play all but 3 games this last year. You know, he got hurt, you know, like, and even like Washington is not a finished prospect. There it is. But like, if you put him on the field as like the 6th offensive lineman in the Lions running game with like if you get another hat on a dude, especially at the second level with David make everybody miss Montgomery on your team now, like that's a lot of yards after contact. I mean, that's going to be a lot of like, tackles broken, like get shit done. And like, I wouldn't mind another guy that's going to be on the field that can help in that running game. Like, to be a prolific offense, like Detroit certainly had that last year, but like most prolific offenses in the NFL have something like either 2 elite wide receivers or call them pass catchers, or like a super effective running game and 1 elite pass catcher, right? And like I would say that St. Brown is knocking on that door being an elite pass catcher, just based off of his production. And the running game, I think, is only going to get better. Like maybe Vaitai comes back and he's an upgrade over what you had at right guard last year. Montgomery, I think, is going to be better than Jameson Williams on like a play-by-play basis. So adding someone else that can aid in that regard really makes a lot of sense to me. So
I know we've only got a few more minutes left, so let's do a couple quick hits. Offensive guard, Vaitai, he took a restructure. He actually took a pay cut with his restructure.
Yeah.
But that might be a position that we can either upgrade from or add some depth to allow us to move on from him after this year. Guys like Osiris Torrance is probably going to be right toward the top of that list. Possibly first round, but almost certainly in the second round. What do you think?
I would think that like Osiris Torrance's ceiling is like 25 and like his floor is like 35.
Yeah.
I think it would be somewhere.
Which means he probably won't get to us unless we try to bump up a little bit.
Right. And so like, unless you're entirely certain that Vaitai is finished, like I don't know that you need to move up for a guard. Like Voorhees is a 6th-year senior that who just had a knee injury. Like if he's there at 159, take him with the pick you just got for Okudah and like let him heal up, redshirt him, like let him study everything or whatever, and then maybe he's ready to step in at one of the guard positions in 2024. I don't know. But I don't have him second overall. Chandler Zavala has been moving up boards lately. I've seen. I don't really like this ranking at all here that I'm seeing on these guards. Can you scroll down? Can you switch over to centers?
Centers only.
Okay. Here are some of the guys. So like Avila, Oluwatimi, Jarrett Patterson, Stromberg, Scruggs, all of those guys can be a center and a guard. And so like we had one of those guys last 2 years, Evan Brown. Now he plays in Seattle, and he was your swing interior backup offensive lineman. And I like any of those guys as a replacement for Evan Brown, especially if you're looking at them. Cody Mauch. Cody Mauch is 310 pounds and has to play in an offense that's going to let him pull and get to the second level to be effective. Like I think he's cute with his 2 missing front teeth. Maybe Santa brings me my 2 front teeth for Christmas this year. Mullet Cody Mauch or whatever. But like he's super athletic, but he's small, man. I mean, like he is a small guard. I don't know. Like I don't personally see it with Mauch. He'll probably be a great player. Like if he plays in like Atlanta or San Francisco's run game, he'll probably be a beast. So
I think the argument for Osiris Torrance or a guard in general is A, depth on the line, B, what are we going to do with Vaitai, and C, do we want to have to pay Jonah Jackson because his contract's going to be coming up, and do we want to have someone waiting in the wings to let him walk off, get a comp pick, and have someone to fill right in? So I could see us taking a guy like Osiris Torrance to do something like that, right?
If you're gonna take Torrance, you're probably having to trade up from the second round again.
Yeah,
and I think that 18 is too rich for him. So like,
yes,
if you wanted to trade down and maybe somebody like Kansas City or Buffalo who wants to target a player want to come up and get to 18, and you're sitting there at 27 or 31 or something like that, and he's on the board, go ahead. No.
Speaking of guys that they might trade up for.
No,
not
trade
us,
up for
not
him.
us.
Yeah.
Other teams that are deeper in the draft. Like I could see some teams, trading up from the mid to late 20s to grab a guy like this. Philly, to be honest, I think I could see them doing something like that. They've got most of the rest of the offense. This would just make them even better. But I could see something like that.
Sure. If someone trades up for a running back in the first round, God rest their soul. I mean, like, I think that is like the only way to make drafting a running back in the first round a worse idea is to trade up
for him, to give up more capital to go get him.
It just makes me want to throw up in my mouth. So like, it's not that these guys are bad players. I don't think that they're bad players. I just don't think that the value that they bring to an offense, like, first of all, I would love to have Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Zach Charbonnet, Tajay Spears, Sean Tucker, Tank Bisbee, Keaton Mitchell on the team. Kendre Miller is probably going to get moved to a slot receiver in the NFL, but like, Roshan Johnson, like that's another guy that like probably going to be a great NFL running back. But like, you and I have talked at this ad nauseum. Like, these guys get chewed up and spit out more so than anybody else. And like, when you are in a position to take a running back in the first or second round, his carries need to matter. His carries need to matter, like when you are playing week 1 in the postseason, and like immediately.
Yeah.
Like, that's where he's going to be a difference maker for you. It's not like week 6 or whatever.
I mean, if you're going to draft a guy, a running back in the first round, it's because you decided to not go running back by committee.
So, and that's the other side of it. Like, the Lions signed David Montgomery for $6 million a year. And then people are like, well, you can get out of that contract. Yeah, sure. You can get out of any contract in the NFL. The Jets are trading Aaron Rodgers at $50 million a year. So don't talk to me about like, you can get out of it. Yeah, you have David Montgomery on your team for 3 years. Okay, let's like use that resource, right?
Yeah. Why
DeAndre Swift, for all the shit that he gets, and I get it, like, he averages playing 13 games a year. I mean, it's not terrible. I mean, you'd want it to be every game, but
it's not ideal,
terrible.
But it could be worse.
Right, exactly. And like, people forget, like, in the early part of the season when they were losing, DeAndre Swift looked amazing.
Yeah.
And like, he offers a skill set that not a lot of running backs in the NFL do. Like, you could line DeAndre Swift up in your slot and he could be your third wide receiving option. Yeah. They don't do that with him, but like, you could do that. He has a skill set that would allow that to happen. But like, you don't have to replace him now. You don't have to sit one of these guys on the bench, third on the depth chart for a year and lose their 3 years in the NFL, one to like a red shirt or whatever, like, just when DeAndre Swift leaves in free agency, draft his replacement that year. That's how that shit happens.
The last
one prize
position I wanted to hit was cornerback, because that's the other one that we could potentially take at 6. And if we decide not to, there's depth there. It's a really, really strong cornerback class. So there's going to be people at 18 as well.
There's so many people in the cornerback group that I like that it's hard for me to make a decision. Where's my Lion hat? My Lions hat is on my kitchen table currently. I wore this one to work, so I didn't take it off. My bad. I like Witherspoon, Gonzalez, Porter, Ringo, Banks, Smith, Brents. Keep scrolling. DJ Turner, I like Tyreek Stevenson. I'm not a huge fan of Eli Ricks. And Williams is almost a complete zone corner, in my opinion. But
like, of the 12, you like pretty much 10 of them.
Correct. Like, I don't like Emmanuel Forbes. He's just too slight for me. And like, his people are like, well, he's super production. He had like a bunch of interceptions. Half of them are tip balls. Like, you can't replicate that. So you're not a fan of Banks? He's like one of the most athletic corners to ever come out in the draft. Cam Smith is great. I think he'll be a really productive player. I don't know that there's a Sauce Gardner or a Patrick Surtain in this group. But like, if there's a guy, I think that if there's a couple of guys that could be that, it's Witherspoon and Porter. So like, and
What
I
about
think
Gonzalez?
so the only problem I have with Gonzalez is that like, if you are looking for an athletic corner, there's probably no one better else in this draft to take than Christian Gonzalez.
Right.
Height, weight, speed. That is if God was making a cornerback, those are the things that he would put in a cornerback is Christian Gonzalez.
Right.
He's just not physical enough for me. So like, if you want a dude, here's my thing. If you want a guy that's going to be like Darius Slay, Christian Gonzalez is your guy for you. If you want a dude that's up in someone's face, you want a guy like Devin Witherspoon. So what's your preference?
A little more Jalen Ramsey then, because I know
Correct.
Jalen's an in-your-face kind of guy.
Right. And so to me, I think the Lions are more of like a Witherspoon or Porter kind of team than they are a Gonzalez team. But I'm not going to cry into my beard if they take Gonzalez.
Yeah.
So, and like Keely Ringo gets a bad knock. That guy's going to be a good corner. I find it hard to believe that like a guy with his athleticism is going to be bad in the NFL.
6'2", 207, running a 4.36.
Yeah.
It seems pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that you're gonna like. So once again, the question about corner is that like, if there's so many of them, when do you take the first one? Right? Do you want the top of that shelf, or do you want the sixth guy at your next pick off that shelf who might be worth like the third cornerback in any other class? You know, like like I know what I would pick, but like I don't really know what Brad Holmes is going to do.
Yeah.
So I'm interested as shit though in what he's going to do. I can't wait. So.
Well, I think we hit most of the positions there. We didn't talk about. Do we take Jake Moody in the mid rounds? And some of the other positions, but we hit the big ones. Looking forward to the draft. Actually, next Tuesday, I'm super pumped.
Yes.
Because so last week we did a round one mock where it was me and Drew. I took the odds, he took the evens, and that was a lot of fun. And it was actually a little bit harder than I anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
But next Tuesday, we're gonna have a couple special guests. A6, he popped his head in earlier, but it doesn't look like he's around. A6 is going to join us, and a friend of mine, Brian, is going to join us, and we're going to do another full round mock, but there's going to be 4 of us drafting. So we're going to do, if you get the North, you get the NFC North and the AFC North, so you get like all those teams. We're going to do a little bit more prep work. Trades again will be welcomed and encouraged. But we're just trying to do what's right for those teams. So I do not recall off the top of my head which people have which.
That's not important.
Okay, so here it is. So A6 is going to have the North, so he's going to NFC North and AFC North. I'm going to have the East, so I'll have NFC and AFC East. You'll have the West, and my buddy Brian will have the South. Yeah. So it will be
apparently we hate Brian. Yeah.
Yes, we hate Brian. He gets the South.
The South
he gets, but he gets more picks. So
okay. If you can't have something good, have a lot of it, right?
If you can't have something good, have a lot. I love it.
Yeah.
So I look forward to that. So it'll be fun. Hope everybody joins us next Tuesday as well. 7 o'clock.
One pride. If you're over in Luke's chat or whatever, bring some of those people over here for God's sakes.
Yes. As One Pride or Funky mentioned, pound that like button.
Yeah, and do some comment, industrial sabotage for us or whatever. Come on, man.
Yeah, just throw it out there. Share it. Share it with your friends. You got other Lions friends.
Yeah.
Email us at casualgmpodcast@gmail.com. Or we're becoming a little bit more active on Twitter. So you can add us at Casual GM Podcast or follow us there too. But I think that's all we got, Drew.
Yep, sounds good. Let me just apologize real quick to Funky because I am going to harp on Hendon's age a little bit. So when he watches that, I do apologize. I think it's a concern.
It's only a little bit. You didn't last, more than 5-10 minutes on it.
Yeah, there you go. So it's not bad for me. And if you guys want to see anything in our mock draft next week happen, feel free to reach out to us, whether that's in the comments or at the email address, and say like, hey, what do you think about like, what if like the Colts moved up to 3, or like, what do you think would happen if, and throw some ideas out there. Maybe we'll try and run with them. Okay.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. We're active in a bunch of the different Lions Facebook groups, so feel free to message us there, or if we make a post somewhere, throw some ideas out. Maybe I'll get the link to the stream started earlier than say 15 minutes before we start, and that'll give you guys opportunities to throw some comments in there ahead of time too, as well.
Yeah, awesome.
So, all right, Drew, have a fantastic evening. We'll catch you in a week.
Yeah, thanks guys. Appreciate it.
See y'all. Appreciate y'all.